The Big House and the Victors, two of the most iconic facets of college football history. Yet just across the border, a similar beloved song in Carmen, Ohio, and dazzling stadium in the Shoe rouse Ohio State fans from around the globe.
Growing up in Columbus, Ohio, yet always being a supporter of the maize and blue, over the years has led me to develop a particular fascination with the young men like me who are surrounded by Buckeyes but didn't want to be one.
This is the story of the many Ohio men who have spurned their in-state university in favor of the maize and blue. This is the story of how these men have irrevocably changed the game as we know it. This is the story of Ohio Wolverines.
Greatest rivalry in all of sports.
I hope you're ready to watch the biggest game of the season. It's the world famous Ohio State to the Shoe and the Michigan Ohio Stadium, and we are ready for the game.
So, what are you doing to beat Ohio State today?
Michigan makes a stand. Michigan comes up with a milestone playoff victory. And Michigan will win the game.
Everything we've been working for is right here, right now. Why not us?
Beginning with Michigan's 1882 football season and spanning all the way to the Wolverines' last win over Washington in the national championship, the history of Michigan football has been shaped by some of the best Ohioans to ever grace the game. Men like Heisman Trophy winner Charles Woodson, whose 77-yard punt return against OSU in 1997, the only such return of his career, is one of the most iconic and important moments in modern Michigan football history.
Or Buckeye State natives like 2023 national champion safety Rod Moore, whose non-recruitment by the Buckeyes, similar to incoming Michigan football defensive lineman Ted Hammond, has left reverberating impacts throughout college football.
And I see a little quote right here. It says, Ohio State not putting in the time to recruit them. I saw that in my own recruiting experience. I was ranked, I think it was the number one defensive line in Ohio, and I visited 3 or 4 times, and I never talked to the defensive line coach at Ohio State. So in my opinion, it's like, do they not know my name? Do they not know who I am? I mean, I'm from Ohio. They should know who I am. They should be at my games. And just for them not to put in the time to even look at me or even know my name, it just gives me that extra fuel and that extra motivation to get to Michigan and to get to pushing myself every single day just so I can beat that team.
But before we dive deeper into these modern-day Ohio Wolverines, let's rewind a bit. The year is 1882. Just 3 years prior, the club era of Michigan football commenced as the Wolverines defeated Racine College 1-0 in a neutral site affair in Chicago, Illinois. Now, the first Ohio Wolverine in Michigan football history has packed his bags and traveled from Bryan, Ohio to Ann Arbor. Horace Prettyman has arrived. Prettyman was originally born in small-town Ohio in 1857. In his early 20s, he moved from Bryan to Ann Arbor, attending Ann Arbor High for several years until he ultimately enrolled at the University of Michigan. While Prettyman boxed, wrestled, and threw the hammer for the track team at Michigan, his passion for football was far and away his main pursuit. Although Horace may not have the name recognition, like Ohio Wolverine greats Desmond Howard, Charles Woodson, and Jake Butt, his maize and blue career is an integral part of the historic Michigan football program. In 1883, a year after arriving on campus, Prettyman scored the first home touchdown in Michigan football history. And despite a disastrous first official season in the maize and blue, which ended with a 1-4 record, Horace's handling of the team's finances on a 4-game road trip out east that included games against Harvard and Yale was heralded as, quote, excellent management by his teammates. In the years following that quite forgettable 1883 football campaign, Prettyman was elected a 3-time captain, the only player in Michigan football history to receive that honor, and one that instantly catapults him to Ohio Wolverine legend status. Horace's legendary U of M influence does not end with his football career. Once his playing days were done, Pretty Man purchased a house with his soon-to-be wife Jenny at the corner of North University Avenue and Fletcher Street. Here is where the Michigan football program took arguably its greatest leap forward in its storied history. The same training tables that Michigan President James B. Angel sought so adamantly to abolish in the 1906 Angel Conference were held nightly at Pretz. Beginning in the 1890s and spanning until the construction of the Michigan Union and Michigan League in 1919 and 1930 respectively, Pretty Man's was regarded as Wolverine football's unofficial headquarters, serving athletes without charge every night. Pretz also serves both as a literal and metaphorical end of an era, as it is thought that legendary Michigan football coach Fielding Yost was hired by university officials in the southeast corner of Horace Prettyman's house. As the club era of Michigan football ended, the Yost era began, and it did so with a bang. In Yost's first season as Wolverine head coach, the team outscored opponents by an astounding 550-0, including victories over bitter rivals Ohio State and Chicago. This 23rd iteration of the Boys in Maize and Blue had 5 Ohio Wolverines on the roster, the most notable of which was halfback Albert Herrnstein, whose imprint was felt all across the OSU-Michigan rivalry throughout much of the early 1900s. Early success throughout a collegiate athletic program has always been absolutely essential for sustained greatness going into the future.
Michigan is bred to win national championships. Michigan was the greatest football team in the country. And so, as a recruit, I saw that as being, yeah, they have everything I need, and on top of that, they're national championships. So as long as Michigan stays the top program, they're going to win those big-time recruits.
Albert Herrnstein's presence in the beginning stages of the OSU-Michigan rivalry is a major contributing factor as to why the Wolverines hold a large edge over their rivals down south and are able to more consistently bring in top Ohio recruits like Ted Hammond. In the 1902 Michigan football season, Herrnstein's 5th and final campaign in the not-yet winged helmet, he rushed for 26 touchdowns. Yes, 26 rushing touchdowns. From a pure touchdown perspective, this mark is the second best in a single season in the 144-year history of Michigan football, trailing only that of Blake Corum's 2023 effort, in which he scored 27 rushing touchdowns, albeit in 4 more games. Michigan's 1902 campaign included games and wins against 5 rivals: Michigan Agricultural, now MSU, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Chicago, and Minnesota. Although all of these victories were certainly important in the Wolverines claiming the 1902 national title, like most seasons, it was their game against Ohio State on October 25th that had the largest impact of any contest that season and continues to influence the rivalry to this day.
You know, the game, in my opinion, is the greatest rivalry in sports. There's nothing else like it. Lined in Michigan's weight room and lined in their locker rooms, there's a saying that says, "What are you doing to beat Ohio State?" And if you look at it, I'm going to include myself because I'm committed, we wake up every single day and go to sleep thinking about how we're bettering ourselves to beat another opponent. Whatever we do, however we carry ourselves, is to beat Ohio State. And there's nothing else like it. It's more than a game. It's a way of life. It's a way of living. And we think about it all times of the day. So the game is just accumulation of all those goals coming together, and it's 2 sides battling for as long as the game goes on.
In the 4th ever game of the OSU-Michigan rivalry, the Wolverines defeated the Buckeyes by the largest margin in the game's history, 86-0. The aforementioned Paul Jones, a Michigan player from Youngstown, Ohio, scored a single touchdown in the game, while legendary Michigan halfback and Ohio native Albert Herrnstein scored 5. Once again, yes, 5 touchdowns. 2 of which came from 30 yards out or more. Herrnstein's collection of touchdowns is tied with Hassan Haskins' 2021 performance for the most combined rushing, receiving, or return touchdowns for either side in a single game in the rivalry's history. It may seem obvious that this game leaves much to be forgotten, or at least much to try to be forgotten, for Buckeye fans of all ages. However, without this game, Ohio State's Carmen, Ohio may never have been written. It is common legend that after the Wolverines' thrashing of the Buckeyes in Ann Arbor, Fred Cornell, a freshman on the OSU football team, used the train ride home to write the Buckeyes' famous hymn. Unfortunately for OSU fans around the globe, this means Albert Herrnstein's 5-touchdown extravaganza lives on every time they wrap their arms and sing with one another. Much like Horace Prettyman, Albert Herrnstein's legacy as a Wolverine extends beyond his playing career with the team. Albert is one of 4 Ohio Herrnsteins to suit up in the maize and blue, joining the prestigious company of families like the Edwards and Hutchinsons, amongst others, who have had multiple members don the winged helmet. Al Herrnstein also is a member of the prestigious club whose constituents either coached or played at both Ohio State and Michigan. From 1906 to 1909, Herrnstein was the head coach of the Buckeyes. Luckily for Wolverine fans, he lost all 4 of his meetings with previous mentor Fielding Yost. Michigan's 7-0-1 record against OSU with Herrnstein either playing or coaching certainly brings him as well to Ohio Wolverine legend status. In the following decades, Michigan's focus on targeting elite football players from the state of Ohio to join their organization only seemed to grow. To quote former Michigan head football coach Brady Hoke, "Ohio has always been a part of Michigan's recruiting. We have 2 Heisman winners from the state of Ohio. It's a big part of it. Ohio is a state that has great coaching, very passionate about the game of football."
Or those guys from Ohio who become Michigan men, they recognize that there's no other place like Michigan. If you get the opportunity, you have to seize it. You have to take the opportunity in Michigan. That education is going to set you up for lifetime. Those connections, your classmates.
As mentioned, this interest in the Buckeye State, which has very much been reciprocated from many Ohio men similar to Ted Hammond, has led to the Michigan recruitment of 2 Heisman Trophy winners, and Desmond Howard.
This year's winner is Michigan's Desmond Howard. Congratulations, Desmond.
And Charles Woodson.
And the winner, from Michigan, Charles Woodson.
But it has also led to 22 of Michigan's All-Americans to hail from that state down south. The first of which was lineman Miller Pontius, who as a tackle was honored with All-American distinction in both 1912 and 1913. Like many at the time, though, Pontius played on both sides of the ball according to the Bentley Historical Library. He functioned as a right tackle, a left end, and a right end for those Wolverines. In the next 12 years of Michigan football, 3 more Ohio Wolverines were honored as All-Americans. Center Jack Blott, center Robert J. Brown, and most notably, quarterback Benny Friedman. Friedman was born in Cleveland, Ohio in March of 1905. As a freshman and sophomore in Michigan, he did not see much time on the playing field. However, once he took over the reins of the Wolverine offense as a junior, his football career never looked back. Friedman was part of the famous Benny to Benny connection, featuring star receiver and future Michigan football coach Benny Eusterbahn. He was the recipient of All-American honors in 1925 and 1926, won the Big Ten MVP in 1926, and went on to have an incredibly successful NFL career. Now, he is a member of the Michigan Hall of Honor, College Football Hall of Fame, Pro Football Hall of Fame, and most certainly is an Ohio Wolverine legend. In the years following Friedman, the Yost era at Michigan began to come to a close. A catastrophic few seasons with Harry Kipke at the helm ultimately led the Wolverines to turn to Stag protege and former Princeton Tiger Fritz Chrysler in an attempt to right a sinking ship. Throughout the Chrysler era, Michigan coaches leaned on a variety of halfbacks from Ohio to continue the successful legacy of Buckeye State men making their journey north. 1947 and 1948 national champion Gene Derricotti was one of these men. Originally from Defiance, Ohio, Derricotti led Michigan football in total offense as a 1944 freshman, while setting records in punt returns and punt return yardage, which stood for the better part of 3 decades. Even more notably, he became a member of the Tuskegee Airmen, for which he was awarded a Congressional Gold Medal and is recognized in the Michigan Hall of Honor. Roughly 15 years his successor, running back Mel Anthony from Cincinnati, Ohio, was also a central member of an iconic Michigan football team. Following a 2-7 1962 campaign, the 1964 Wolverines went 9-1 on their way to earning a Big Ten Conference championship and winning the Rose Bowl. That season, Anthony rushed for 9 touchdowns, including a 3-score performance in a win over Oregon State in Pasadena, capped off by his 84-yard touchdown run and Rose Bowl game MVP honor.
While I most certainly will never argue that Ohio Wolverine legends like Horace Prettyman, Albert Herrnstein, and Benny Friedman have not been essential to building the Michigan football brand into what it is today, I personally find it rather difficult to deem any other man besides Bo Schembechler as the greatest Buckeye State Michigan man of all time. Schembechler was born in Barberton, Ohio on April 1, 1929, just months before the New York stock market crashed and the entire United States was thrown into disarray for much of his childhood. He played as a tackle at Miami University of Ohio on a team that was led by none other than Wayne Woodrow Woody Hayes, the future coach of the Buckeyes. Schembechler spent much of his formative coaching years under Hayes, working both as a graduate assistant and assistant coach before he got his first official head coaching gig back at his alma mater.
In 1969, after an incredible .692 win percentage and 2 MAC championships over 6 seasons at Miami, Bo was hired by Michigan Athletic Director Don Canham to run the Maize and Blue show. Over Schembechler's 21-year run as Maize and Blue commander, he amassed 194 wins, 13 Big Ten championships, 10 Rose Bowl appearances, and 21 winning seasons. Arguably even more legendary than Bo's coaching career statistics is the tree of 27 assistants and former players he has cultivated into future collegiate and professional coaches, including, of course, national champion leaders Jim Harbaugh and Les Miles, amongst others. This tree also includes Schembechler-era 1990s coaches Gary Moeller and Lloyd Carr. Under these 2 men, the aforementioned Heisman winners Desmond Howard and Charles Woodson were stolen from right underneath the Buckeyes' feet to become Ohio Wolverine legends. On their way to finishing historic seasons, both Howard and Woodson had dazzling performances against their scarlet and gray rivals to seal massive victories. Howard's 213 all-purpose yards against OSU were his most in a game in the 1991 Heisman campaign, and his pose after a 93-yard punt return is arguably the most iconic moment in Michigan's legendary football history. And of course, Charles Woodson's interception and 77-yard punt return 6 years later in the 1997 version of The Game were absolutely pivotal in the Wolverines' conquering of their rivals and subsequent capturing of a national championship for the first time in about 50 years. Over 25 years later, and the Wolverines are yet again national champions, in large part due to the success of Ohio Wolverines like Rod Moore and A.J. Bartner. From the onset of the Harbaugh era, the Michigan coaching staff has leaned on a variety of different Ohio Wolverines to carry the program's torch. This ideal has only continued into the 2024 recruiting class, with Harbaugh protege Sharon Moore now at the helm. The Maize and Blues incoming class contains 4 Ohio Wolverines. In 2023, Mr. Ohio football, Jordan Marshall, and a trio of Ohio All-State honorees, and Ben Roebuck, Luke Hamilton, and of course, Ted Hammond. Each of which has a distinct relationship with the history of the game and Michigan football in general.
You know, I know Luke and Ben will have the same story as me. As Ohio State, we were kind of looking to get that offer from Ohio State. We were looking to kind of talk to those coaches and never got that opportunity. And Jordan just picked Michigan because he recognized Michigan as being the best and being better than Ohio State. And that class is just special. Those guys are special. The way they carry themselves, the way they lead their class. I know Ben Roebuck has won 3 state titles in Ohio with this team, St. Edward. So those guys are leaders in their own right. Those guys have great ability, great talents. And I'm just looking forward to continue to play football with them for the next 4 years. And I can't wait. And I know it's going to be special. And I just got to cherish those moments with those guys.
Cherishing moments. That's what being a Michigan football fan and really living life is all about. For a 3, 4, or maybe 5-year period, we are blessed to be let into the lives of young men donning the winged helmet every Saturday afternoon. These moments are fleeting. They come and they go. But they are impactful. They mean something to fans around the world who love these players and love this university. Every Michigan fan has been impacted by one of these Ohio Wolverines at some point in their lives. And that's why they are such a critical part of our legendary football story.